Yo, today I wanted to present to you all something that I'm pretty passionate about, which is all the games that I've gotten 100% of the achievements for on my Xbox, or platinum trophied for any of my PlayStation friends. So for those that don't know, I've been achievement hunting for something like 14 years on and off, and because of that, I have about 220 completed games thus far. I'm not going to cover every single one because that would result in something like an hour-long video, but I am going to focus on the ones that really resonate with me and I have really something to say about. With that being said, let's get started with my most recent completion, which is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Now, this one I just completed today, which is July 11th, 2022. Honestly, very fun, very standard Call of Duty completion. Actually pretty easy because I think usually the hardest achievement in most Call of Duties is completing the game on veteran difficulty. This one's pretty easy. There are a lot of checkpoints around everywhere. And what is surprising is that the special ops mode, which is co-op only, you can't do by yourself, is actually still pretty populated 3 years later. I'd gotten my most previous achievement other than when I started going for this again in 2019, around when the game came out. So I was pretty surprised to see that the Spec Ops mode for this game is still pretty heavily populated, and it's pretty easy to be able to go for these types of things as long as you're like pretty decent at the game. Elden Ring, also very fun, also very easy. It's sort of like Skyrim and Fallout, in which if you put in the time, a completion really isn't that hard as long as you like enjoy playing the game and you're gonna put in the time anyway. The reason for this is because all the achievements sort of center around you fighting bosses, fighting optional bosses, getting different endings, and there are like a couple for getting like all the legendary weapons, of which in Elden Ring, much easier than Dark Souls for sure, because all of them are open world. All of them you just go to the location and pick it up. There's no like grinding or anything for like a drop. And Elden Ring all in all is like pretty fun, pretty easy to do, and also one of my favorite games of all time. So we have Resident Evil 2. Kind of want to talk a little bit more about this one too, mainly because it has the type of achievement that I really like, which is to do challenge runs within the game, and that unlocks an achievement. I really enjoy doing challenge runs for games that I really enjoy. So doing stuff like not using the item box, or not using health the entire time, or only take a certain amount of steps, just provides like this really cool challenge and makes me play the game in like a very different way, but also feels incredibly rewarding when I'm able to do it, especially since Resident Evil actually gives you in-game items for getting achievements, such as like an infinite pistol or an infinite knife or an infinite rocket launcher. And I think that's really cool, and how a lot of games should kind of lay out their achievements, because I genuinely think that they're really fun to go for, and they provide like a very fun challenge for someone to do. Right after this is Dead Space 2. Now, Dead Space 2 actually has one of the hardest achievements that I think I've ever gotten on Xbox, which is, if we scroll down here, Hard to the Core. Now, Hard to the Core, for those that don't know, is basically the hardest difficulty in Dead Space, which means you have less health and you find less resources and enemies have more health, but then you also have 3 saves throughout the entire game. And if you die, you have to either revert to one of those saves or you have to restart the entire game, so there's no checkpoints whatsoever. And it's sort of like a game of chicken, in which you think you can keep progressing further and further. It's like high risk, high reward all the time. It's very stressful, and it's very difficult, especially since a lot of things in this game are able to kill you in just one hit. But this was incredibly rewarding to get, and I'm super happy to have it on my gamer tag. Next up is Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 was a pretty easy completion all around, other than this one, Becomes the Master, which is to place top 3 on the Gauntlet scoreboard. I actually have a video of this up on my channel right now about me getting this one. Titanfall 2 alone is pretty easy to complete, but this one is definitely the hard one in a bunch of easy achievements, in my opinion. But this one requires you to sort of have mastery over the movement, and I think being able to like grind and sort of like perfect what you're doing in order to get an achievement is a pretty cool way to do it. Next up we have Fallout 3. This one's kind of fun because I started playing this game in 2010, and I didn't complete it until 2019. And there's kind of a reason for that. So the first reason is I tried to go for this mill worker achievement, which is to find all 100 steel ingots in one of the DLCs. And for whatever reason, I wasn't able to find any more than 98 in my first playthrough, and it frustrated me to no end, so that I kind of like quit playing whatsoever. Another thing is for the data miner achievement. When I first played this game, I was 13. I didn't exactly know how the hacking minigame worked for whatever reason, and I kept locking myself out of terminals, and I didn't have the skills in order to be able to unlock the terminals once they've been locked. So I actually ended up running out of terminals completely to be able to hack 50 terminals. And because of that, I just kind of quit. But then I came back to it because I'm like, I'm only a couple achievements away. I can totally 100% this. And then I did another Fallout 3 playthrough. Fallout 3 is one of my favorite games of all time, so I was very happy to do it. And then I managed to, like, 9 years later, actually just kind of come back, complete it all too. What's also kind of fun about Fallout 3 is that I've actually completed it twice. So for Xbox, sometimes PC and console versions of the game are separate and have separate achievements lists. So it allows you to complete it twice, even though it's the same achievements over again. You just have to do them, you know, you have to do each achievement twice because it's not like the save transfers over or anything. But hey, more Fallout 3 for me. I'm totally okay with that, 100%. Next up, we have It Takes Two, also a fantastic game, very co-op oriented. So the reason I kind of want to talk about this is because A, It Takes Two, amazing co-op game, one of the best co-op experiences I've ever done. And B, the achievements in the game are so fun. Like, there's the obvious ones, like, you know, achievement for beating the game, achievement for doing all the mini games, but then there's also a majority, if not most of all of these achievements are just about doing something very, very fun. Like just doing optional random things that you just kind of go out of the way to do. It's not part of the main game, but you're just like exploring the world and are able to just kind of find something that's like fun to do. Like, I believe one is making a toy race car go through a hoop and sort of exploding after. And it's just some random fun thing to do with whoever you're playing with. I don't know. It's just like very enjoyable. And I really enjoy achievements that are just kind of not exactly too much of a challenge, but just doing something creative and interesting that sort of breaks up the monotony of getting all the other achievements. Next up, we have A Memoir Blue. It's just a pretty easy completion on Game Pass. It's sort of like a point and click adventure type of thing. Nothing too much. I have a couple of these on my profile. Most of them are just kind of from Game Pass. I don't really like buying games that are super easy gamer score unless they're on sale for like maybe 50 cents or something. Usually I kind of want to stick to games that I enjoy playing and not playing a lot of games for gamer score. If you do that, I'm 100% on board with you. Boost that number, bigger number, better person, and all that. But it's just kind of, I think for me, since I don't exactly have the most free time in the world, I kind of prefer to stick to games that I really enjoy and also really enjoy completing. Next up is Human Fall Flat. This game, very, very, very annoying to complete. And the main culprit for that is because the game constantly gets updated with new levels and constantly adds new achievements. So every like 2 months or so, I have to re-download the game, go through all the puzzles and monotony and annoying physics and delayed achievement pops. Because for this game in particular, for whatever reason, sometimes it takes a minute to have an achievement pop after you did it, or it takes 15 minutes after all the requirements are done. It's very frustrating, especially since after like 10 minutes, I assume I did it wrong and I start doing it again, and all of a sudden the achievement comes out of nowhere, and it's just, It's a very fun game, but getting the achievements for it is just kind of like a very taxing experience. So I go for this at your own risk, really. Next up is Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy. One of my favorite games of the last year. It had a very surprisingly great story. The gameplay is okay, but the soundtrack, the story, the characters are all very top tier. A very enjoyable completion. The only thing that was kind of annoying about it, as you might be able to see here, is that after I beat the game, I had to unlock something else, which is all the costumes. And the reason for that is because for whatever reason, for this game in particular, most of the YouTube videos about it separate the collectibles into a bunch of different videos. And I didn't know that, so I only went for one specific type of collectible until I realized I had to juggle between 2 videos. So I had already gotten to like chapter 4 and missed a whole bunch of outfits. So I had to beat the game first and then actually come back and get the outfits. Very, very, very frustrating experience. And I hate when people do that. I would much rather watch an entire, even if I'm only going for one collectible, I would much rather watch a guide that covers every single collectible instead, and it just like timestamps when certain collectibles are. Other than that, this was a very, very fun game to play and a pretty not too bad completion to get. Next we have Portal Still Alive, one of my first Xbox arcade games. Also not too bad. Also like Resident Evil 2, in which you have to complete challenge runs, and it has very fun achievements. The game itself is pretty short too. I think it's a great starter game to complete if you're ever trying to go for 100% completions of games that aren't just point and click adventure type things. Next up, we have Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite was kind of a pain to complete because, like Human Fall Flat, I had to wait a little bit to complete this one. For the medic achievement, which is my most recent one that I got, I guess only a month after I'd completed the rest of the game. The reason for this is because the game type, in order to get the medic achievement, didn't actually exist until Season 2 came out 6 months after the game came out, which is really weird and really annoying. So this game was sitting on 1,575 out of 1,600 for quite a little bit. But other than that, Halo is pretty fun to play. I think the thing I'm most proud of about this game is being able to complete the battle pass without actually paying to unlock all the tiers. So I did enough challenges and played enough multiplayer to just get it naturally and not have to pay money. And it took a lot of hours, but honestly, I really enjoyed playing Halo, and it managed to get it right before I got burnt out from playing the same 6 maps over and over again. 343, please give us more content, I'm begging you. But yeah, Halo's great, and if it adds more achievements, I'm probably gonna go for it as long as they also add some new cool stuff to the game as well. Hollow Knight, okay, this is also one of my proudest ones, like Dead Space 2. The reason for that is because when I first played this game, I thought for sure I was never going to complete it. The reason being that when I beat this game, I had like 520 gamer score out of the 1,000. And when I looked at the achievements I had left, they were incredibly intimidating. Like this. So speedrun 2, you have to complete the game in under 5 hours. My first playthrough of the game took me like 40. So being able to complete it in like an 1/8 of the time seemed like a very, very tall task. There's also Steel Heart, which is to 100% the game in Steel Soul mode. For those that don't know, Steel Soul mode is permadeath mode. If you die whatsoever during the entire game, then you start all the way from the beginning. That was also kind of incredibly stressful to go for. I actually streamed that one. I should have a video of it coming out in maybe the next month or two once I'm done editing that. This was a crazy one to go for. I had a crazy final boss fight and everything. It was just wild. I'm surprised I got this. And then the one I know most people have a lot of trouble with is Embrace the Void, which is to complete the Pantheon of Hollownest. For those also that don't know, this is a boss rush mode in which you have to fight every single main and optional boss in the game back to back to back to back to back. If you die at all, you have to start from the very beginning, which is incredibly tedious, especially since you don't want to have to keep fighting the first boss, the first easy boss that for whatever reason takes like way longer than most of the other bosses in the game at the beginning again, and yet you lose basically like an hour of progress through all the bosses. This does take an hour each run, by the way. It's really crazy. And then when you get to the end bosses, if you mess up at all, like they're very punishing. And by that time, you're already sort of mentally drained from fighting all the other like 60, 50 bosses or whatever. So doing this was a tall task. What I'm pretty proud of is that I actually ended up doing this in 2 tries. But the reason for this is because I grinded the heck out of the Pantheon single boss mode, in which you can fight each boss individually on a whole bunch of different difficulties, meaning normal difficulty as in how you would fight them normally in game. There's ascendant difficulty in which the boss does double damage, and then there's radiant difficulty in which the boss one-shots you if any of their attacks hit. And before I actually attempted this, I kind of challenged myself to radiant every single boss in the game. And I ended up doing that after a couple months of just consistent grinding for like an hour-ish every other day. And it definitely helped when going for this, but it was also definitely very, very, very overkill. I would not recommend it, especially Radiant Radiance, which, no, man, I'm never doing that again. But yeah, Definitely built me the experience to be able to kind of like crush this one out of the park. And it kind of carried me throughout all the rest of the achievements too, because then I had like a very good knowledge of all the bosses and all the hard parts of the game. But yeah, Hollow Knight is definitely one of my proudest completions to date. All three that I talked about, as well as like a couple more, are like very hard to get. And I'm so proud of myself for kind of not giving up and being able to complete another one of my favorite games of all time. Next up, we have Modern Warfare. I actually have Modern Warfare Remastered down there too. Also a very fun completion. Also a pretty easy completion. It's sort of like Titanfall, in which most of the game is very, very easy to get achievements for. And then there's that one mastery achievement that's very difficult. You all probably know what I'm talking about, the Mile High Club, in which you have to complete the level in a minute in veteran difficulty. Very, very crazy mission. It takes a lot of like time and effort to like get down, but once you finally get it down, you feel like you've mastered the game, you know? It feels like an accomplishment, and it's such a nice cap to put on your achievement hunting journey for the game. Very, very fun to go for. It's sort of like Portal, in which I think many people who are just starting out achievement hunting can totally go for this and sort of have that sort of rush when they are able to finally complete it, and especially when they're able to complete Mile High Club. Hitman 3 is also very fun because this is another one in which it's mastery, right? And Hitman 3's achievement list is great because every single level has a mastery achievement in which you have to get to level 20, right? And it's a little bit of a grind for sure, but it also makes you play the game in ways that you wouldn't have thought of or wouldn't have done had it not had a challenge for it. Sort of like how the first time I played Hitman 1, I went through Paris, I kind of snuck around, I kind of like winged it, right? Which was fun, right? But then when I went back for the achievements, I was able to do Paris while sort of doing like a little assassination sub-story mission. It was really cool. And Hitman 3 has so many of these scenarios. And in order to get the mastery, you have to do the challenges, and the challenges provide you with these like really cool assassinations that are very worthwhile to go for. Next up, we have Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It's kind of funny because I've completed the Legendary Edition, which includes all 3 Mass Effect games, but I haven't completed any of the individual Mass Effect games. So Mass Effect 1 I haven't completed, Mass Effect 2 I haven't completed, Mass Effect 3 I haven't completed, but the combination of all 3 games into the Legendary Edition I've completed. I think for the most part this was pretty fun to do. The only thing that was kind of a pain in the butt was completing all the campaigns on Insanity mode. BioWare definitely did not balance the game for Insanity mode, and there were a lot of times in which I got very frustrated with each of the individual, with a bunch of the encounters during the game. One specifically stands out in Mass Effect 3. You have a minute to get to a passenger transport vehicle, and there's a bunch of enemies in the way, and you have to just basically kill all the enemies and sprint, but the enemies are infinitely respawning, so if you just run to the passenger plane, then you just get shot to death because it's insanity, you have like no health. And if you just stick around and try and like slowly push your way up, the timer runs out, the plane explodes, and you have to restart. That took me an hour. It was painful. Insanity was such a slog, but luckily the games around it were pretty fun to play. It was only like a couple instances, a couple combat scenarios that it really was just such a pain. Next up is Sekiro. This is similar to Elden Ring, in which you're gonna get this as long as you just kind of put in the time. I think you need something like 4 playthroughs to be able to complete this. The reason being, each of the different endings, there's an evil ending, there's a good ending, better ending, best ending. And then you also kind of have to go through New Game Plus because you have to unlock enough XP to get all your abilities in the game. It's just kind of another one in which it's just kind of like you just keep playing the game over and over, which is fine because all FromSoft games are very replayable and very fun, and it feels great to be able to master all the mechanics and such. Same with Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls Remastered and Dark Souls 1. I've completed Dark Souls twice again. Very fun games to go for. You just kind of put in the time, you'll be able to get it. The only thing with Dark Souls 3 though, and a little bit of Dark Souls 1, is the legendary stuff you have to go for is a slog. And the reason for that is Covenants. So for those that don't know, Covenants, for some of the achievements in the game that you have to go for, is getting all the rings. You get some of the rings through Covenants, and you get leveled up in Covenants by getting certain items in the game. Now you can get these certain items by A, doing online, or B, you can grind them from enemy drops, right? The problem is when I did this in 2020, online was pretty dead, especially with some of the covenants. One in particular being the one that you get summoned if someone's invading a host world, and you get summoned in order to kill the invader for the host. No one had the item to summon me in the game, I swear. I was waiting for 3 hours and I did not get summoned once. So I was relegated to having to grind Silver Knights. And Silver Knights are not an easy enemy. They also have a drop rate of like 3% for the item I need. So it took hours to get the 30 items I needed to be able to level up enough to get the sorcery or ring or whatever that I needed. And oh my goodness, I never want to wish this upon my worst enemy. This was easily one of the worst grinds that I've had to do for an achievement for Dark Souls 3. I'm glad it's over with, and I'm not gonna do it again. Next up, we have Alan Wake Remastered. Also, not too bad at completion. Some of the there's a bunch of collectibles in this game which kind of get confusing to you know, all gather at once, but I think it's pretty not too bad to do. I'm one of only 2 people in the entire world to play Alan Wake, and I'm proud of it. It's a very fun game. Next up, we have Mortal Kombat 11. This is easily the easiest Mortal Kombat to go for because there's none of those crazy towers that you have to be able to do that require absolute mastery of fighting games, which I really don't play all that much. Actually, one of the hardest achievements in this game was completing the advanced tutorial, in which you had to do some crazy combo string that involved like a whole bunch of like special moves and movement and teleporting around. That took me, I think, sadly 45 minutes to do in order to get all the combo stuff down right, because you have to do it fast. It's crazy. It's an insane amount of precision and reaction. And man, am I just glad it was over once it was done, because the rest of the game really wasn't that bad. Next, I got Skyrim for PC. I've completed Skyrim 3 times, once on the original, once on the remastered edition, once on the PC edition. Also, fair warning, the PC edition of Skyrim for Xbox is horrible. The reason for that is because the game crashes whenever there's too much going on screen, aka whenever you fight a dragon. So it's not very fun to go for. I think for PC, I had to use console commands just because my game just kept crashing at certain parts of the game and I could not make any progress. I wasn't about to let this sit uncompleted. Are you kidding me? But the other 2 times I played Skyrim, aka the definitive edition and the normal edition, I did completely legit. So I didn't feel too bad about just using console commands. Next up is Dead Rising. This one's pretty substantial because it also has one of the hardest achievements that I've gotten thus far, which is 7-Day Survivor. 7-Day Survivor, for those that don't know. For Dead Rising, it works on a day and night cycle in which 2 hours in real time counts as a day in game. And you basically have to survive 14 hours, aka 7 days in game. The thing that makes it very difficult is you have to do all 14 hours in one session. You can't save at all. So you really have to dedicate a day in order to actually get this achievement. And what's even more frustrating is that your health is constantly ticking down because of a hunger meter, and you always have to like keep finding food in order to maintain yourself. And what it kind of amounts to is you take out a whole bunch of people, steal all their food, you stay up on like a ledge for like a day or 2 and just like constantly eating, making sure that your health doesn't go down. It's just more of a slog than challenging, but it's very hard to do because you do need to set aside 14 straight hours of gameplay. And I'm glad I kind of got this out of the way, because this was the only achievement I had left in the game, and I was going to be so frustrated if it was stuck at 980 out of 1,000. Next up, we have Halo 4. This game is pretty substantial because I started this game in 2012 when it came out, and I didn't actually complete it until a week or 2 before the multiplayer servers were set to close. The only achievements I had left were multiplayer achievements, and I wanted to get it completed because I knew I was like very, very close. And what was super frustrating, this is very memorable, because I got into a session with a bunch of other people that wanted to get the achievements before the multiplayer closed. But the problem was that the servers were so jank and you kept getting disconnected. We couldn't keep a party together because we'd get matched together in a lobby, and before the game would start, someone would like disconnect from Xbox Live and have to restart their console. And it took us an hour to get in our first game because of that. It was such a mess. But also it felt so good after everyone got all their achievements and such and were able to complete the game. And it was just like a very fun experience, because I'm not usually someone that goes into boosting sessions, but this was like a very memorable day, and I was able to complete one of the games in a game series that I really enjoy a lot. Next up, we have the Ezio collection. which is Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and Assassin's Creed Revelations, which is it's just a single player component of each of the games. Those Assassin's Creed really aren't too hard to beat. The only like really difficult one is Brotherhood, in which you have to get 100% sync in the missions, which aren't too bad other than like one or two. But the rest of it is like a pretty fun completion. It's Assassin's Creed. You're gonna have like a pretty good time. It doesn't take too much time. All three games together takes a while, but if you're just going for the single 1000, playing one game and then taking a break and then going for the other game, taking a break, and it's pretty fun. That's what I ended up doing, and I didn't get burnt out, so it's all good. Psychonauts 2, along with Guardians of the Galaxy, was one of my favorite games of the last year. Psychonauts 2 is fantastic. I'm so sad that Xbox doesn't have a lot of 3D platformers to go for, because I think it's one of my favorite game genres. And I'm also not a Nintendo player normally, so I can't play all the cool Mario games because I don't unlock achievements for them. But yeah, Psychonauts 2, fantastic game. Also not too hard to complete. Celeste was pretty hard. I remember I grinded the C-side and B-side levels for a while. There were so many rooms that I ended up getting stuck on. There's also cheats on this one, in which you have infinite dashes and infinite jumps that make getting the achievements in this game just really easy. But unlike The Evil Within 2, I did this one legit because I really enjoyed Celeste. There's Dishonored, Deathly the Outsider. This is another one like Resident Evil 2, in which you kind of have to complete the game in a bunch of like different ways in order to be able to do this. Like you have to complete the game without being detected, like a challenge run. You have to get all the different endings. You have to do certain things in levels that you wouldn't do before that sort of unlock like different pathways. I always think all the Dishonoreds have like very fun achievements to go for. So this is also a game that is very fun to complete for sure. Alien Isolation has an achievement that I'm also very proud of, which is complete the game without dying. It's just another permadeath achievement. This one's pretty hard because if you get caught by the alien whatsoever throughout the entire thing, you're instantly dead. And this was pretty hard to get. It cost a couple of resets, cost a little bit of my sanity, but we ended up getting around to it. Dude, Super Lucky Tail, underrated 3D platformer, and I stick by that. Super Lucky Tail, very fun. It's sort of like a dumbed down 3D Mario game. But because I am starved for platformers on Xbox, I really enjoyed it. Honestly, going for the completion wasn't too bad. I actually have the completion on this game twice, so there's a new Super Lucky Tail. So I played this game twice. I know, amazing. But I played this game twice. But in the original version of this, you actually had to grind a lot for coins in this game. You needed like 999 coins, whereas in this one you only need something like 99 or something. And it's much easier to complete than its counterpart, which I'm very thankful for, because getting the coins needed in the previous game was a bit of a grind. Crackdown 3 is also very underrated, but grinding to get all the agility orbs, in which there are 750 and they also never get marked on your map, was kind of scary. I followed a video guide the entire time, but the problem is you couldn't mark which ones you had gotten and which ones you couldn't. So I was always just constantly afraid that I was going to miss one and then have to watch the entire like hour-long video guide over to find the one I missed. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Thankfully, I only had to do one go-round in order to get all the agility orbs that I needed to complete it. But man, it was a little scary. Other than that, it's really not too bad to complete. Just getting all the orbs could be a little grindy, a little frustrating, but Crackdown 3 is really fun. It's a very underrated game. You just kind of have to turn your brain off. Rainbow Six Siege, I'm also pretty proud about. The reason for this being one of the achievements that I had to do was get gold in ranked mode. And I just had to like grind a whole bunch of Siege. Siege was very fun until I realized I suck at Siege once I got to gold. But it's one of the only multiplayer based completions that I have on Xbox, and I was very proud of it, because Siege isn't exactly like new player friendly, but I was able to just kind of like push on and grind to be able to get all the achievements in this game. Just Cause 2 is like Crackdown 3, in which you have to find a whole bunch of collectibles that are very much unmarked on the map. The only saving grace of this completion is that you only have to find 75% of everything, so it's not a super grind. It's not like you have to 100% everything, because god, that would be almost impossible. Just Cause 3, very similar to Just Cause 2, except instead of grinding collectibles, you have to grind challenges, which I thought were way more fun. Also a bit more frustrating. But other than that, it's just like a very fun game to play, and all the challenges were like hard but fair. So I really didn't mind it too much. Doom is another one that I'm very proud of because the main game, the single player, pretty easy, not too bad to get whatsoever. What I'm very proud of is this one, which is Beauty and Pain, which is playing a multiplayer match with a piece of cyber demonic armor equipped. And you may be wondering, why is this impressive whatsoever? This doesn't sound that hard. Well, the first rank in which you unlock cyber demonic armor is Prestige 8. So I grinded Doom multiplayer for like a couple months in order to just like consistently rank up, got to 8th Prestige in Doom multiplayer, which basically means you have to get to max level and then restart to 0 to get a first Prestige and yada yada yada. And this was a grind. It initially was DLC and all you had to do is buy the DLC and equip the cyber demonic armor. But then after the update, all the DLC became free and locked behind level requirements, and I only started going for the completion of this game after that, so I kind of had to grind my butt off. But Doom multiplayer was so fun, and I was so disappointed when Doom Eternal came with battle mode instead of the normal Quake Arena style multiplayer that Doom 1 had. I really hope they bring it back if they end up doing a 3rd installment. It's so fun. Witcher 3, same as Skyrim. Witcher 3 is really fun. You may be wondering why I'm skipping Call of Duty World at War. It's because I actually don't have all the achievements in it. See, as you can see, I have 65 out of 66. The entire reason for that is there is one achievement at the very bottom. And that achievement is secret, but what it is get some sun. And what you have to do is you have to get to 10th Prestige in Call of Duty World at War. I'm only at 2nd Prestige. The game is filled with hackers, and I don't really want to play any more Call of Duty World at War. So this one's probably just going to stay at max gamer score, but not max achievements. There's Wandersong, another top 10 game of all time, my favorite indie game of all time other than Hollow Knight. It's a fantastic little indie game. Very, very, very easy to complete too, which is the only reason I actually ended up playing it. I'm so thankful I did because the story of this game is so charming, so fun. The characters are great. The music is great. The look is great. And I highly recommend this game to anyone who has never played it before because it is a treat. Another one that I'm pretty proud of is Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. I think I spent the entire summer of 2017 grinding this game for all the achievements. Some of the more respectable ones are getting a nuclear weapon, which just requires you to get like a whole bunch of resources in the open world. You have to complete all the mission tasks, which are like very mission specific little side things you have to do, which range from being not too bad to like very difficult. So that's probably why only like 0.19% of people even have this unlocked. The specific reason Peggle 2 was such an enjoyable completion for me is you have to do all the optional objectives. And I only played Peggle 2 when my friends were over. For whatever reason, whenever me and my friends hung out, one of the things we would love to do is just play Peggle together and just go for the optional objectives and everything. Peggle is such like a fun, easy game for everyone to get around. We would just pass around the controller whenever one of us would fail. And then whenever one of us was able to get all the optional objectives in the level we were like on, we would all like cheer and celebrate. And it was just like such good memories. I love this game for that. We have the infamous Avatar, The Last Airbender, The Burning Earth, the amazing game in which you can unlock all the achievements in 5 minutes by spamming B. It's incredible. I rented this when Gamefly was still a thing. If anyone remembers Gamefly, which is the Netflix rental service for games before I think it went defunct. But I rented this bad boy. I was able to get a copy. I plopped it in, pressed B, returned it to Gamefly. It was incredible. Didn't have to pay a dime. I have Halo Reach, in which this one I completed around the time the game was still somewhat popular, but getting some of the achievements was very annoyingly hard. The one I remember being afraid to get is you ate all the chips and you blew it up, specifically because they were worth 13 and 42 points respectively. And having an uneven gamer score, meaning not divisible by 5 gamer score, is such a pet peeve of mine because I'm not able to do it. So I knew that you ate all the chips would be the harder of the achievements to get. So I sort of focused all my time to be able to get this one first. And once I was able to get this, I was able to get the 13 one, which was much easier. And I thought it was much nicer than unlocking the 13 one really easily and not being able to get the 42 one because it was too hard. ended up, you know, completing the games. That's all fun. Halo 3. Halo 3 is the game that actually got me into achievement hunting. For those that don't know, when you played Halo 3, the only way to unlock multiplayer armor was to get certain achievements in the game. And then unlocking that armor, I think, triggered a response in my brain that was like, oh man, I have to go for achievements in every game. There could be cool stuff behind it. There wasn't, but I still kind of kept collecting achievements anyway out of habit, and now I'm stuck like this. So hopefully I'm not the only one here. I think the last one I had to get was, yes, the Vidmaster challenges in this game were very, very hard. I remember it took me and a couple friends ages, like multiple attempts to get Vidmaster Annual, which is to complete the last level on Legendary with Iron Skull, which means if any one of us dies, we have to restart a checkpoint, which was incredibly frustrating. Managed to get that done. But the last achievement I got, you had to get a Perfection Medal, which is you have to go online, play multiplayer, play against completely random people, and you have to go at least 15 kills and no deaths. 15 or more kills or no deaths, and you get the Perfection Medal. But if you die even once, it's over. And it took me forever to be able to get a Perfection Medal, but eventually I got good enough at Halo, whereas I was able to get those legit. So I was very happy about that. That was a pride. And this is definitely one of the first games I ever completed, and I'm very, very happy about it. Next up, we have Dark Souls 2, similar to Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, just kind of like the same. Beat bosses, get legendary stuff, get multiple endings. And it just so happens that Dark Souls 2 is right over my greatest shame, which is Dead Rising 2. This is the only game I will show you that I have not completed other than World at War. Reason for this is I am missing one achievement. And what is that achievement, you may ask? Well, it is to complete the game in co-op, and I can't find anyone to play the 360 version of Dead Rising 2 with me. So this will remain locked until further notice, which is incredibly depressing, but it is what it is. COD Black Ops 2. COD Black Ops 2 was one of the first hard completions that I'd actually ever gotten, other than Halo 3. Specific reason for this is because there's this one achievement in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, other than the zombies achievements, which are normally pretty difficult in the first place. But the hardest achievement was to complete all the challenges in Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 had level challenges in which it also had a story with like branching paths and everything, in which you had to play the story in a certain way in order to be able to actually like get all the challenges. Very, very much a grind. And this achievement is, even though it has 5% of people unlocking it, it was just such a pain to get. You had to do so many different things. You had to complete things and so precisely and perfectly. But I managed to get it, and I was very, very happy with it. This is one of my proudest completions as well, to be honest. Next up, we have Brink. So I don't know how many of you remember Brink. This is another multiplayer only completion that I managed to get. Brink was supposed to be the next big multiplayer thing back in 2011. Never ended up taking off whatsoever, but I managed to complete it before the servers went completely dead, which I'm pretty happy about. I'm pretty sure I'm like one of the only like 5 people in the entire universe to have completed Brink. And then finally, we have the first game that I ever completed, which is Doritos Harm's Way. For whatever reason, Doritos decided to make 2 video games back in like 2010 and put them on Xbox for free. I will never know why, but the 2 games were very easy to complete as well as very fun to play. Harm's Way is just kind of like a arcade racer type thing in which you just get power-ups and you're able to use the power-ups to have like turrets shoot at other things. It's sort of like a more metal Mario Kart, which was pretty fun. But it was also very, very easy to complete. You can see I got every single achievement in this game in a day. And I think getting 200 out of 200 gamer score on this game sort of kickstarted my desire to 100% everything and basically completely destroyed any sort of chance I had at living a regular life. But yeah, that about wraps things up. It's been about 2 hours now, but hopefully I can edit it down to be a more palatable video length. I hope there were some games in which you could totally relate to what I'm saying, and I'm hoping there are other games that might have piqued your interest. I'm still going to be doing focused single achievement based content and challenge run content, but I want to add in a couple lesser edited things as well, just to have like a more frequent upload schedule. If you want to see me going for challenge runs or singular achievements or 100% completions live, and check out my Twitch, it's linked down in the description. Same with my TikTok, where I post clips from the stream that I think are pretty funny. And if you want to see me unlocking some of the hard achievements that I talked about in the video, you can click right up here and check out some of the more edited, more focused content that I want to do on the channel. Anyway, that's it for me. See ya.